Hello and welcome to the Tuesday's reveal night. We're starting on the 9th, so this will be this coming Tuesday. I hope everyone's had a good Christmas and New Year. So today we'll be going through every team, every driver, amongst the 5 divisions. We'll go through the calendar and then we'll wish you on your merry way for the season to come. So this season slightly changes in the fact that we've got 12 races instead of 9. That was due to the Christmas break that we had last season, and everything else is more or less the same, except we're just making sure that we've got 20 drivers in every division, so we've chopped off a division from the bottom. Any questions after the stream, please let us know. Otherwise, let's get cracking. So now we move on to the first division, which is Tuesday's Master. This is our top crossplay division, absolutely jam-packed, full of talent, probably one of, if not the quickest divisions in PGR, and I'm really excited to see how it goes this season. So first up, we have Kuski returning in the Haas. This will be his first full season with us, and he scared the grid senseless in Imola, nearly winning by 10 to 15 seconds. But he'll be looking to put in a consistent performance this season and go for that title, I'd imagine. He'll be joined by Rage. Rage is a German driver who's been with us for a couple of seasons now. He uses this league to develop and is hoping to do so with a very good teammate in Kuski here. Moving on to Team Red Bull. Team Red Bull is Lionator. Lionator should have gone for that title last season, really, but had a couple of holidays which unfortunately took him out of the running. He'll be looking to get back on that and push for it this season, although with the talent around him, it's anyone's really. He'll be joined by Alifa Wad Khan. Alifa Wad Khan is a driver who came into the league expecting to be one of the top drivers, but then found, wow, there is some competition here, and he really enjoys it. With a very solid teammate in Lionator, you will have something to push for next season for sure. We then move on to Team Mercedes, which is Marley, who won the Drivers' Championship last season. He will be looking to retain that in a very stacked field, which should be very difficult to do, so fair play to you, Marley, if you achieve that. He'll be joined by Mo Erakat, who has moved over from PlayStation and looking for a new challenge in this cross-play division. You will certainly have it, Mo. We then have Team McLaren. Team McLaren is Jay Tyler. Jay Tyler is probably up there with one of the best qualifiers in the entire league, not just this division. He knows he needs to work on his racecraft a little bit to challenge for titles and his consistency, but if he can do that this season, he will definitely be up there. He will be joined by Orion Imri. Imri had some connection issues last season, which took him out of the running for a decent position, but has now fixed those and will be looking to push on this season with a solid teammate in Jay Tyler. We then move on to the AlphaTauri team. So the AlphaTauri team is Simpendal. Simpendal is a driver who's regularly getting wins every season, even won a title in this division a few seasons ago. But he had a couple of vacation days last season, as a lot of people did towards Christmas, and was taken out of the running a little bit by that and a few incidents, I think. So he'll be joined by Intronsic. Intronsic is a mainstay in this division, been here for many a season now, and really enjoys it. And Intronsic, you'll have a very good teammate in order to push for that Constructors title this season. We then move on to the Alpine team. Team Alpine is Nicholas Meyer, otherwise known as Orion Nicholas, I now believe he's changed his name to. Had a couple of races here last season, but has now come back for a full season and will be pushing for the top spot as well. Many contenders in this season. Anyone could really win it. He'll be joined by Anoxidus, who is very quick on his day, has had poles, has had wins, but just can't put it all together for a season. Has had some real consistency issues, and that is why he's a bit further down the seeding, and with Nicholas Meyer on this occasion. We then move on to Team Aston Martin. Team Aston Martin is our runner-up from last season, Stiggy, everyone's favourite Bowser 6'8" giant. He will be looking to push for the title again with using his consistency, which is very key, as we all know. He'll be joined by Smoking Cheese, who I've heard good things about from Lemons. We've not seen him race yet, but you've got a very good teammate, Smoking Cheese, in Stiggy to push you on this season, and we hope that you'll have a great Constructors battle with him. So after the Aston Martin team, we have the Ferrari team. So, Team Ferrari are best friends back together again. The last time these were friends, they won the constructors' title, and Che won the drivers' title by over 100 points. Since then, things have changed a little bit in the scope of things. There's a lot more fast drivers in the division. Che hasn't quite been up there in terms of form, but we're hoping these two back together as a team, they'll bring a bit of life back to each other, and hopefully they can be competitive again. So that's Che and Brash. We move now on to the Williams team. So Team Williams is one of the favourites for the division, Ryan Lemons, who has been absolutely dominant in the off-season, winning the realistic event by 15 seconds in an AlphaTauri. Ridiculous. Then winning the full distance event by a similar margin. A real favourite for this season. He'll be joined by JM, who's moved over from PS this season. He will be looking to have a development season here and learn from the guys around him. And Lemons will be a great teammate to do that. So finally, in this division, we have the Alfa Romeo team, which consists of the P2 in the Champions Division last season, Rostocker, who will be looking to contend in this division of absolute aliens. And he will be joined by Wibbs, who joined in the latter half of last season, had a good, consistent performance here and there, and be looking to develop on that with a full season under his belt. So that's the full 20. The reserves are Geekin, Arbon EPA, Falwaz, Verklempt, Mr. Verstappen, iWardy HD, Emilka, and Luca the Pro. So that's 28 in total, and that concludes Tuesday's Masters Division. So now we move on to Tuesday's Challenger, which is the second of our two current crossplay divisions on a Tuesday. So last season, if we rewind a little bit, we had Hilly winning the title. He is now no longer in crossplay, so it opens the door for someone else. A lot of this division looks fairly similar to last season, just simply due to the fact that the gap between Challenger and Master is quite large. So if you're in the top 6 and didn't get promoted, the reason for that, I'll happily explain in more detail, but it's just there's a large gap at the moment. So, moving on. So the first team we have is the Haas team. That will be led by Maverick, who has moved over to crossplay this season. He was in Tuesday's Elite last season and will be pushing for a title challenge here, he hopes. He will be joined by Ty Bamlin. Ty Bamlin, one of the drivers this last season that joined us from the States. So he is looking for a more consistent season this season after what was more of a development season for him last time out. We now move on to Team Red Bull. Team Red Bull are friends, as far as I understand. So T-Bag has joined us fairly recently. He is looking to get going on a full season. I don't know too much about him from what I've seen of the trial and what I've seen of a few races here and there. Gets a few track limits, but pace is generally okay. If he can nip those in the bud, then he'll be up there competing. He's joined by Full Send Dave. Full Send Dave moving over to crossplay also for the first time this season. These two, as I say, are friends and will be hoping to mount a Constructors Challenge together. We then move on to Team Mercedes. Team Mercedes is headed by Bosnian Helmet, who almost undoubtedly is the fastest one-lap driver in this division, but his consistency is just not quite there. Got in quite a few incidents last season, which really held him back in the title challenge. If he can keep it clean and he can keep it consistent, he will be up there. He'll be joined by Clubhand Lou, otherwise known as Louis Webb. Clubhand Lou, more of a development season again for him, but again, looking to push forward with a very strong teammate in Bosnian Helmet. Every constructor should have a bit of a better chance now, because we understand the constructors a bit better in the cross-play. So then we move on to Team McLaren. Team McLaren is Razan Destroy and Rob Williams. So Razan Destroy is a driver who was toward the middle of the pack last season, but really has started developing towards the end of the season and really putting in those fast times. So we've seeded him a little bit higher than he did finish last season, because we've noticed how quick he's got suddenly, particularly in the off season. He's been quick in some of these events, and he'll be joined by the realistic event Lobby 2 winner, Rob Williams. Rob Williams has moved over to crossplay. Has never been the quickest qualifier, has Rob Williams, but he's always there. He very rarely DNFs, and he'll definitely pick up good points this season. And I think in this division, he's even got a chance of competing. So we shall see. We then move on to Alpha Tauri. Alpha Tauri is Liam ESK. Liam ESK has recently joined the Stewardson team, so thank you, Liam. He is a driver who did really well in Evo last season and got that title, and he's moved on to crossplay now and will be looking to continue those sort of feats in a division which has got a bit faster drivers in, but we'll see how he gets on. He'll be joined by Scally, who also raced in that division last season in Evo. However, he is now racing in crossplay. We then move on to the Alpine team. The Alpine team is Grant. So Grant is a driver who joined us at the start of last season. He's really enjoyed it here. He's even raced, shout out to Grant, in Legacy, which is Sunday's division, which is well above his pace, but he's had a great attitude towards it, and he keeps learning from the other drivers around him, which will only help his pace in this division where he's competitive, and I think he'll do well this season. He'll be joined by Brasco, who I believe is a friend of his. So ironically, them two are together, and we hope that Brasco, and I think his first full season here, can compete in the Alpine with Grant. We then move on to Team Aston. Team Aston is Oraf. Oraf is an Italian driver who joined us towards the start of last season, came in for our first crossplay season, and did really, really well. I was really impressed. So ended up right near the top of the leaderboard in P4. He'll be looking to continue that feat and sort of go for a title this season. He'll be joined by Death Zombie, who didn't quite have the one lap pace last season, but his consistency got him a P9 in the end. So good result from him. Ferrari. Team Ferrari is Matti, another Italian driver who finished P2 last season. So if we take away Hilly, right, if we take away Hilly, who is now moving out of the division, this guy is effectively the number one seed. No pressure, Matty. He'll be joined by Kane Studley, who is a new driver. He'll be hoping to develop this season with Matti. Two teams left. So we've got Team Williams, which is Crumpets, who I've heard nothing but good things about. Finished P3 this season, but was P2 basically the whole season. So between him and Matty are sort of your target points for this division. He'll be looking to develop and go for a title. He'll be joined by Dix, who used last season as a bit of a development and is always improving his pace because he is racing with faster drivers. So finally, we have Team Alfa Romeo, which is Alligator, who is a Bulgarian driver that joined us towards the last round of last season, put in some good performances, but is looking to see what he can do with a full season. He'll be joined by Windsword, who's moving over to crossplay for the first time this season. Then we have two reserves, Kimi Kubiana and X Konski. They will both be reserves, so 20 plus 2 in this division, and that concludes Tuesday's Challenger. Covered Master and Challenger so far. We're now going to go through Champions, Elite and Apex, the three PS divisions. So firstly, Tuesday's Champions, won last season by Milan Toth, second Rostocker. Rostocker has now moved to crossplay, so Milan Toth is the top seed. So Haas, firstly, we have Matthew Martin. Matthew Martin is a Hungarian driver, member of the stewarding team last season. He had really good one-lap pace, but unfortunately didn't always keep that in the race and didn't get the finishes he would have hoped for. Ended up P12 last season, but really has good pace if he can keep it there. He will be joined by Hassan. Hassan's coming up from Elite, but has really shown good pace, good consistency, good racecraft. We're really impressed with him, and we think he can compete in this division again now. After coming up here before and not quite being ready, we believe he is now. So look forward to racing you this season, Hassan. He will be joined, so that is Team Haas. The next team is Team Red Bull. So we obviously have Milan Toth, again, who won the division last season. He'll be looking to repeat that feat in a division where he is the runaway favourite. He will be joined by Bab. Bab is coming up from Elite. Although he didn't finish that high in Elite last season, Bab had some real standout performances towards the end of the season and showed us that he definitely belongs in this division, so we are giving him a chance to do so. He'll have a very strong teammate in Milan Toth, and the world's his oysters are on this one. We then move on to Team Mercedes. Team Mercedes is headed by Schizo. Schizo finished a respectable P6 last season, had a very solid season with us. One of the only Moroccan drivers in the league, actually, worth noting, is Schizo. So he will be joined by Chaz Knight Rider. Chaz finished P10 last season, so 6 and 10. Quite a good team together here, and I think they've got a real good chance this season. We'll see how they get on in the Mercedes. McLaren next. So we've got Grimsleeper, aka Dale, finished a respectable P8 last season. Had some real moments of impressing people, but also got caught in a couple of collisions. If he can keep those out of his game, then he'll really be up there this season. Particularly in the final few races, was very quick. He'll be joined by the newly joining the PS division, one of our admins, Hilly. Hilly will be joining Dale in the McLaren. Hilly won Challenger last season, so the second crossplay division, and has shown by his other racing in other divisions that he can compete with these sort of guys. And Dale and Hilly will be a strong team, I'm sure. Moving on to the AlphaTauri team, we have Fraser. Fraser, you are, if you are listening, one of the hardest drivers to seed in the entire league. You are incredibly quick on some tracks and incredibly consistent. On other tracks, you're not quite there, and I don't know why, but I've seeded you quite highly. I think you're a good driver. I think you're very quick, and you didn't have a full season under your belt, so your standing in ninth isn't quite representative. So we'll put you in the AlphaTauri, and you're going to be joined by Mac and Cheese. Mac and Cheese last season had a few DNFs here and there. We know he has good pace. We know he can be up there. He just needs to get that consistency together. If that team can get the consistency together, they're a real, title threat. So we'll see how they get on. Then we move on to Team Alpine, headed by Milan Speckberg. He finished P11 last season, but that's not really representative of him, we don't think. So he did very well in all of his other divisions, winning his Sunday division, which has a lot of these drivers in, and finishing P2 to Scotty in Wednesdays. So he has the potential to do really well in this division, just didn't quite manage it last season. He'll be joined by Just Dave, who very quick, but had quite a few spins last season, so he'll be hoping to improve, and Milan's a good teammate to help him do so. Aston. So Aston has the ever reliable Scotty MT, who's now on a wheel. He will be joined by Dental. So Dental, although didn't have the strongest season last season in Champions, has really been strong in the off season. So should be do a bit better this season, we think. And Scotty's right up there in terms of the competition, so he should do pretty well. Next team Ferrari. Oh, it's me. Me, who came third last season in the Drivers' Championship, but Rostock has moved, so I'm effectively second. I'll be joined by Lil Pigeon. Lil Pigeon's moving up from Elite. He finished 5th last season in Elite, but we think he showed good enough pace to come up and challenge in here. So a bit of a development season for you, Pigeon. I'll obviously help you. Apologies, I'll be on no traction, so I'll probably spin a lot, but I'll try. We'll see how we get on. Team Williams is Frank, or FLW. He did pretty well last season, finishing P5. Respectable position for him, quite a considerable gap to P6. He'll be joined by Patrick. So Patrick had a bit of a poor season last season, but the thing with Patrick is he has really good pace. He got a P2 last season. He just needs to get the consistency there, and that'll be a very strong team as well. So then finally, Team Alfa Romeo is Armin. So Armin finished P7 last season. First season on a wheel and he finished P7 is very impressive from Armin. And he will be joined by the elite champion and the guy who has won 3 back-to-back titles, Mr. Consistent, JT Codd, in the Alfa Romeo. Very consistent team. So that is the full 20 for Tuesday's champions. We have 3 reserves in Zane, Matthew Martin, and BS Beasley. That concludes champions. So we now move on to Tuesday's Elite, which is now the middle of the 3 divisions on a Tuesday. So a lot of people in this division will be either from the previous Elite or the top of Apex, and you'll see that as we continue. So, Haas. Team Haas is headed by the Riddler. The Riddler did pretty well last season, P4 in Elite, performed very well on a Wednesday, and is never a driver that does that well on one lap on the qualifying, but is always there in the race, and he'll be pushing for a title this season, I would imagine. He is joined by the Eagle. The Eagle had a bit of a division last season where he was on a lot of holidays and doesn't really represent how he actually is. He'll be looking to get a full season under his belt this season and push with Riddler for the Constructors title. A quick note here, a lot of people in Elite won't have the number 1 car they want just because everyone picked the same 3 cars. Sorry. So, Red Bull is headed by Liam G. So Liam 92. Liam went down from Champions this season. He came up, even though we said to him that we think he'll be a little bit off the pace. He came up, he struggled a little bit, and he's gone back down. So he'll be looking to push for a title again this season, prove that he is still Champions material, and come back up. He'll be joined by Jazz Piece. So Jazz is a driver who has been here for a couple of seasons in a bit of a friendship group now with a couple of others. This will be a bit of a tougher season for Jazz, but he's got a very strong teammate in Liam to pull him along, and I think that they'll do well together. Team Mercedes. So Team Mercedes is headed by Lee Webb. Lee Webb didn't have the best Tuesday season last season. So he was in Apex, but we sort of expected him to go for the title, but he sort of fell off a little bit towards the end of the season. But he's a very strong driver, and he should be up there in Elite this season. He'll be joined by the ever-reliable admin, Jay. So Jay has really developed a bit towards the end of last season, picked up his pace a little bit, and the consistency's really coming. So this will be a good challenge for him. So we'll see how he gets on. Team McLaren is headed by the resolved Taylor Danny, who dominated Apex last season by a huge margin to come up to Elite, and I've actually got him as one of the better seeds in this division. Comparing some of his times from the end of last season in Apex to some of the guys he's racing with this season in Elite, he was quicker than them. So we'll see how his pace holds up in this division now with a bit more competition for him. He'll be joined by Jasby. So Jasby, another American driver, he'll be sort of challenged in this division, but it's a good opportunity to develop, and you've got Taylor Danny, who's one of the top drivers in the division, to help you. Team AlphaTauri is Egg Golf Hazard. Egg Golf, another one who really developed towards the end of last season, and another one that should really be up there this season in this division. Really good one-lap pace at Golf Hazard. Just needs to get the consistency a bit more in some of the races. Very quick in some races, not quite up there in the other races. But if he can just get those couple of tracks that he struggles with together, he will definitely be up there. He'll be joined by Sure Shot. Sure Shot was a little bit out of his depth last season. Helped us by filling the numbers in Sunday's Contender, where he had a few issues with pace, but should be a bit more competitive in this division. You've got a good teammate in Egg Golf to help you out, and that is Team AlphaTauri. Team Alpine, we've got the returning Tuck, who after his Mike Tyson-like boxing victory, which you can see on the server, will be racing again full-time in the Alpine. He will be joined and hoping to do well this season with Max Stubbs. Max Stubbs returning after a few absences last season. Has good pace, has really improved, but him and Tuck should be pushing on for a Constructors title, really. Aston next. So Team Aston is Wiggy. Wiggy joined us towards the end of last season, but has really come alive, has been active in chats, has been active in events, and we appreciate you, Wiggy. You're doing well. And he will be hoping to have a stronger season now he's got a full season under his belt. He'll be joined by Rattigan, who finished P2, I believe, in Apex last season. So coming up to a more tough division. The last time this happened, Rattigan didn't have that strong a season, but we're hoping he's learned from that and he will do better this year. So Team Ferrari. Team Ferrari is headed by F1 Riley, otherwise known as Dave Riley. Finished sort of mid-table last season, but it was in a much more difficult division. He'll be joined by Dean Morby, who was also sort of mid-table. So these two should really bounce off of each other and improve. We're hoping so anyway. So Team Williams is actually the final team in this division, and that is Clyde, who's moving back over from Crossplay and has been really impressive last season. Raced with me in quite a few races in Wednesday's Junior last season, and I expect him to do really well in this division. He'll be joined by Speechy, who, funnily enough, is in the same boat and raced quickly with me in Junior a couple of times last season. So these two will know each other, and I think they'll do pretty well. So the reason there's only 18 in this division, there is also 5 reserves. So Thunstrom, Matt F1, Paths, Keith LUFC, and one other. But the reason that there's 18 in this division and not 20, gents, is because we felt that the gap in pace was too big for 2 more from Apex to come over. So we didn't want them to be 20 seconds behind. So we thought that we'd have 18 that are closer and then have a couple of reserves in there as well. So there is no Alfa Romeo team in here at the moment. If you think there's anywhere around your pace and you're listening to this and you go, oh, then let us know and we'll get them in. But otherwise, yep, 18 plus 4 at the moment for Elite, and that concludes Elite. Finally, in terms of the Tuesday divisions, we have Tuesday's Apex. Tuesday's Apex is now a bit of a mixture of the previous Apex division and the Evolution division from previous. So Evolution now no longer exists, and if you were near the top in Evo, you're still probably in this division because the gap was too big. So this division will give you a fresh challenge, but you're not moving up technically. So there are 20 in this division, plus 5 reserves at the moment. So we've got Team Haas. Team Haas is led by Steve B. Steve B had a pretty solid season last season, but missed a couple of races here and there, therefore meaning that he didn't contend for the title. He did end up finishing quite high in a couple of races and was P4 in the end, so should be a pretty strong driver this season if he can keep the attendance a bit better. He'll be joined by Zoltan, who didn't race on a Tuesday last season, but did okay on a Sunday, and we're expecting it to sort of correlate to a decent performance here as well. So that's Team Haas. Red Bull, we have Slavy. Slavy's come down from Apex last season, had a pretty poor season there, but coming down should be one of the higher up drivers in this new division. He'll be joined by Divi. Divi is moving over from Crossplay again, so he's now in the PS division with Slavy. I do expect Divi to do pretty well. He has developed a lot over the last couple of seasons, but this division is more of a telltale of where he's at. We'll see. Team Mercedes. Team Mercedes is Superi, one of our Bulgarian drivers that's been here almost longer than anyone. I think he is one of the most long-standing drivers in this division. He finished P5 last season, but had some really standout performances. His quali pace is phenomenal, but just needs to get it together in races. He'll be joined by Quimo, who's basically the opposite, right? Quimo isn't amazing in qualifying, but always performs well in a race. So, if these two can learn from each other, they'll be phenomenal. We'll see how they get on. So Team McLaren next is Disco Bobby. Disco Bobby's coming back after having some issues with his rig. He was in Apex last season, so he's coming down technically, but yeah, he had some issues with his rig, so he didn't race the end of last season, but we expect him to do well here. He'll be joined by Basson, Mr. Driver of the Day. Basson never qualifies too well, but always does well in races. Although I have seen this season he's qualified quite well in a couple of races, so he's obviously working on that aspect of his racing. We'll see how he gets on. Team AlphaTauri, Taylor Drift, the returning Taylor Drift, was in Wednesday's Junior last season. Had mixed results, I would say, but this will be his first full season back in quite some time, so we'll be using this as development and could be up there. We'll see. He'll be joined by Benny. Benny didn't have the strongest season last season, but is always improving and be hoping to do a bit better this season. Team Alpine. Team Alpine is Craig. So Craig will be in the Alpine. He's coming down from Apex this last season. He did okay, but the majority of his good results came from the race and wasn't actually his one-lap pace. I don't mean to rhyme, but we're hoping he does well and uses this as further development. He'll be with Chicken and Blunts. Chicken and Blunts, again, the opposite as Craig, qualifies quite well but hasn't been doing quite as well in races. These two can learn from each other. Again, they'll do well. So Team Aston now. Dan White is in Apex now. He was in Apex last season. He'll be looking to challenge for a title here, I would think, in the Aston. He, again, not always the best qualifier, usually does pretty consistent in races, is joined by Jock, who's very quick in qualifying and hasn't been doing as well in races. So, again, all these teams can learn from each other. Haven't actually put them together with those intentions, but it does seem to be the case on all of them. Team Ferrari. Team Ferrari's Cold Baked Bean, who's a friend of Dan White, so those two will be in the division together. He'll be joined by Spivvy CJ. Spivvy CJ is a driver from the US who joined us for Evo last season, finished about mid-table. Be looking to develop on that this season with a very strong teammate in Cold Baked Bean. Team Williams. Team Williams is Mitch Chase. Mitch Chase won the full distance event we had the other day, so well done on that, Mitch. You'll be in the Williams with Rob Ban. Rob Ban, always consistent, finished P7 in Evo last season. Needs to improve a little bit to get up there for the title challenge, but he knows that. This division will be a bit more difficult than Evo last season, though, so we'll see how they get on. And then finally, we've got Team Alfa Romeo, ZX Tenor, who painfully, and I'm sorry to remind you of this, ZX, lost the title to Liam SK by 2 points last season. In a bit more of a challenge division, can you still do it? We'll see. He'll be joined by Prowler, who, again, did race on a Tuesday last season, but was sort of mid-table, finished P8. And then we have 5 reserves in this division. So we've got Pro, who's moved to reserve. We've got Lord Harland, Dino Casino, KJ Marino, and Zalika Varga have all moved to reserve. So 20 plus 5, and that concludes Tuesday's Apex. Done. So as you'll see coming up on screen now, we have the calendar for this Tuesday season, which I'm sure you've all been waiting for. Shout out to Frank, FLW in the server. You have done a masterful job with this graphic, as you always do. It looks great. This will be in the server afterwards for everyone to see. This sort of follows the 2024 calendar roughly from the tracks that were pulled out. So we've got Bahrain first this coming Tuesday. Then we move to Jeddah, then China, then Spain, Silverstone, Netherlands, Italy is Monza, if you're not aware. Singapore, USA, which means Circuit of the Americas, Texas. Las Vegas, Qatar, and finally, as we always do on a Tuesday, finish in Abu Dhabi for round 12. So nothing greatly is changing in terms of settings, and everything will be put in the app in the next couple of days in terms of Tuesdays. So please bear with us with that. Hilly's got a lot of work to do. Thank you, Hilly, for your hard work. And that concludes the calendar. So that concludes the Tuesday's reveal night for Season 9, gents. I hope you've all enjoyed. This first time you've probably seen it on YouTube, so a couple of little thank yous. So Jay, thank you for all the production and putting this video together. You've done a smashing job, mate. Frank and Armin for all the graphics that you've done for us, and Hilly for all the application-related work that you're about to do. And most importantly, all you guys for making this league what it is. It would be nothing without all of your participation. Love you all. See you all on track Tuesday. Have a good one.